Welcome to the Diet Starts Never podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Nigro, aka Coach Rach. This podcast will teach you how to live your healthiest life in and out of the gym and put yourself first again. Oh, and we get long-lasting results here. I've made it my mission to help my clients ditch the diet mentality and heal their relationship with food and themselves. After transforming hundreds of bodies and minds, it's your turn. Are you ready? Hey guys, Coach Rach here. This podcast is intended to inspire, educate, and support you on your health and fitness journey. I am not a medical doctor and cannot give any professional medical advice. If you are suffering from any kind of medical condition, whether it's mental or physical, please seek help from a qualified health practitioner. All right, you guys, we are here with Rachel. She is a somatic breathwork coach, and she's going to tell us all about what she does.
Amazing. Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here in your house.
Of course.
We're recording her house right now. We just recorded an episode for her podcast, which I will link in the show notes. And now we're recording one for mine.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And it's been a long time coming. I know we've been talking about doing this for a while. So we're here. We're doing the thing.
Yeah.
And it's been super fun so far. But yeah, I'm Rae. I'm a somatic coach and breathwork facilitator. And I really help women with anxiety.
I love that. Yeah. So simple.
Yeah.
I think we all need help with anxiety.
I know, right? Literally.
I could go on about like my anxiety journey forever, but I want to hear all about yours, how you got here. But Rae and I actually met at a networking event. I think my mom was talking to you first, right? Because you had.
I think so.
Yeah.
Actually, yes. You were you were with your mom and maybe your aunt?
My aunt. Yeah. And so she was like, "Oh my God, this is Rachel from Long Beach." I was like, "No, I'm Rachel from Long Beach." It was so funny. So
it was
a coincidence.
Really funny. And then we were like chatting, and then I don't know, we just kind of hit it off.
Yeah.
And we just kept running into each other over the past like few months, and now here we are.
And now we just go for walks and record podcasts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love it.
All right, great. So tell us how you got into what you do.
Yeah, so my journey, I was always kind of in like a helping field. You know, I did my undergrad in psychology, and then I went back for my master's in social work. But I really always struggled with anxiety. That was like my thing that I always struggled with since I was very, very young. I had what's called like quote unquote high functioning anxiety, which means like, you know, it didn't necessarily like stop me from doing something, but I was always feeling anxious while I was doing those things.
The worst feeling.
Yeah. So for me, it looked like a lot of shortness of breath, a lot of kind of like uncertainty with myself when it came to like big changes. What I would say now, all very normal, like big life transitions.
Okay. But
what really kind of launched me even deeper into this specific field was in 2016, I lost my dad unexpectedly. Mm. And about 3 weeks later after that, I was in a relationship for 3 years, and the guy that I was dating broke up with me like out of nowhere.
Oh my God.
I know, right? So I was just really like down and out, you know. I was having a rough go. And my anxiety was something that I was kind of managing that whole time. But after those life events, it went from like maybe like a 6 to like an 11.
I would imagine more. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And then it kind of was a journey from that point on. I was trying like, you know, I was doing all of the things, the traditional talk therapy, spending time outside, going to yoga, kind of like all of these things that, you know, I think were helping me at the time, but nothing was really like really getting to the root of my anxiety. And literally on a whim, I went on Instagram and I was like, you know, I wonder if there's like an anxiety coach, like someone someone that literally like this is just the one thing that I really want to dive deeper into. And I found a somatic coach who was that was the technique she used, which is somatics. So what that means is not necessarily working with like your mindset. Like, yes, your mindset's very important, but doing what's called like a bottom up approach, which means like starting literally from the bottom up, starting with your body, working your way up to your mind to work with anxiety. And that was like absolutely mind-blowing to me, for lack of better words.
Yeah.
And created the biggest shift. And then from there, I pivoted from just doing social work to going deeper into breath work, going deeper into somatic healing, going deeper more into like the energetic spiritual side of things.
Okay.
And I just haven't looked back. That's
Wow.
that's kind of how I found myself here as a coach myself. And now that's what I do. I help women with anxiety. I help them with nervous system regulation,
Okay.
with connecting to their body, shifting their mindset, working with how every single person has like a unique lived experience, like life experience, and how our body has remembered those times and how we can move through it from like a different approach.
Yeah, I think everybody needs to learn about this. So let's rewind a little bit to
I
somatic.
threw a lot at you
No,
there.
I want to digest all of it. So somatic itself, like, is that the definition, like working your way up?
Yeah, so great question. So soma is from like the root of it is from Greek, the Greek language, and it means like the body. It means the whole living organism. And traditionally, if you were struggling with anxiety, it would look like, cognitive behavioral therapy, like CBT, like working with your mindset, like being combative with your thoughts, working with the worry thoughts, the shoulds, the shouldn'ts, which is all very important. Bottom up means like actually starting at like the ground, so to speak. So you could literally start connecting with the earth, like
being grounded.
Yes, like being grounded, like which is changing like your energetic state. Like if you're anxious, and myself included, if anyone's feeling anxious, they could be feeling like kind of flighty, kind of like a higher vibration or vibrational energy that's kind of like pitter pattering. But like if you're feeling grounded, that's a totally different like vibrational feeling.
I exactly know what you mean. And I don't think a lot of people realize the importance of getting grounded. And this is something I just learned more so recently, I would say in the past year or so, is literally taking your socks off, taking your shoes off, and touching the earth. The importance of it. And it has, maybe you could help me explain this a bit better, like something to do with like your electromagnetic frequency in your body, right?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. The reason why it feels so nourishing when you do it is because you're changing your frequency. Like you are changing whatever nervous system state that you're in, you are down regulating yourself into your window of tolerance if grounding is what you need.
Right.
There are times too when like you do need that upper kind of like more spacious feeling that's what I would say upregulating your nervous system.
Okay.
So it kind
Never
of does
look at it like that.
It does go like both ways where sometimes you might need something else. But yes, getting grounded is so helpful for anxiety.
Yeah. Oh my God. And that's why people say like be in nature.
Yeah.
I'm sure, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're so lucky to have the most beautiful nature a block away from our house.
Yeah,
the ocean.
It's funny when I was still living at my parents till I was about like 24, 25, and when everything had happened with my dad, all of my siblings moved home to be with my mom. So we had like 10 of us, like because their significant others too moved into the house.
I was going to say 10 siblings.
No.
Okay.
I'm the youngest of 4.
Okay.
So 4 times
There's
2
a
is
lot.
8.
Got it. Okay.
Plus my mom is 9. So that's how you get to almost 10.
Okay.
So we're all living in the house, and the time just came. It was time for me to move out. Maybe I was home with everyone for maybe about a year, maybe a year and a half. It was time for me to move out. And at the time I was interning at a university hospital on Long Island in the child psychiatric unit.
Wow.
And my supervisor lived in Long Beach. And she was like, Long Beach is the most healing place.
Oh my God, it's so healing, right?
She's like, if you go, she's like, you might not leave. Like she was like, you might not leave it.
Yeah.
She's like, but if you go, it's very healing. And I could not agree more. Just being able to like walk outside and go down and just like look at the water, or put like your feet in the sand, or just have those moments that you get to have in nature outside, and it's right in your backyard.
Mm-hmm.
It has done wonders for my nervous system.
Of course. It's literally, we vibe on a different frequency here. It's a different energy. And I think everybody, for the most part, is much calmer because of it, because we have this appreciation of nature or this access to it. And I don't think anybody takes it for granted who are living here.
Yeah, that actually also just reminded me, I went to high school probably like 45 minutes from here, and one of our economics teachers in high school was from Long Beach.
Oh, yeah?
And He was the chillest.
Chillest guy, I'm sure.
Like, to this day, me and my friends from high school will talk about how he was like the calmest
Really?
and chillest. And now I understand why,
Yeah.
because he was living in Long Beach that whole time. He is
There's just a different
unbothered.
energy. Exactly. Unbothered. I don't have time for anything but the ocean.
Right. So
I can
funny.
totally relate now. I think it's helping me become a much calmer person, which takes a lot. Okay, so back to more what you do.
Yes.
So what exactly is somatic breathwork? How do we bring the breathwork into it?
Yeah, so great question. Breathwork is a facilitated experience where you're able to manipulate your breathing pattern and really alter your state of consciousness to release, heal, see different stored trauma that might be staying within your body. So there's so many different types of breath work.
Mhm.
I do trauma informed somatic breath work, which is, different than maybe kundalini or
Okay.
maybe integrative or shamanistic. There's so many different forms of breath work.
Right, I haven't even heard of those.
I know there's a bunch. I like to just say, as long as you're connecting with your breath and you're finding like what works best for your body and your nervous system, like you're on the path.
Okay.
Just continue to connect with your breath, continue kind of like seeking what form of breath work is speaking to you. There's two kinds that I facilitate. So the first one is meditative.
Okay.
That's like a longer experience. So anywhere from like an hour to an hour and a half. And that's like the deeper form where you're going to be maybe having like an emotional release or like a somatic response in your body based on what that breath pattern is creating for you in your body in that moment.
Okay.
And then integrative is a little bit shorter. So that's about a 30-minute to 45-minute experience. And that's something that you can do like, every morning before work. That's like
Okay.
8 minutes or less of active breathing. I love both of them. I think they
Yeah.
both have like their different pros. I think they're both amazing. And I've had different experiences personally with both, but also my clients too have
Really?
benefited tremendously from both. So, for example, like what's really nice is if we're doing like a coaching session where we're doing more like somatic coaching, we can start with breath work.
Okay.
And we can get like that opening feeling or that grounded feeling or connect with our hearts or get more creative and then
Got it.
even move further into the body, which is basically like working with your subconscious. So
Okay.
it's really cool.
So it sounds so cool. I have so many questions for you. So a coaching session, what does that generally look like? Is it depend on the person? Do you have like a couple different types?
Yeah, great question. So a coaching session typically looks like connecting with your body first.
Okay.
So, we all have like really busy days. We're
Yeah.
in our minds a lot. And when you come into a coaching session, we're going to drop in. So that's
Okay.
what that term means. Like we're going to drop in. We're going to connect with our body. We're going to potentially get grounded if that's
Yeah.
what is needed, most likely if it's been a busy day. And then we're going to set our intention. And the intention is really the driving force of the session. So the intention is going to be based around how you're hoping to feel.
Okay.
So if you come in and you're like, I'm really anxious, I'm hoping to understand my anxiety in a different way, that's going to be our North Star. Like you are,
Okay.
I always like to say, like, you are driving the car. Like I might be like the wheels or the
Right.
gas or something, but like you're driving and I'm just facilitating the experience of getting like where you want to be.
Okay.
But it definitely takes like a co-creation to make that happen.
Got it. And so when you work with someone, obviously they're one-on-one sessions. Do you do them on Zoom? Do you do them in person?
I offer both actually.
Okay.
So when I first started, I wasn't actually envisioning having like an in-person practice or business, I should say, but I do. So I have.
Yeah.
So we're in my at-home office right now. So I
That's
meet with
great.
clients in person, and then I also have a lot of different clients virtually all over the world. Really,
Yeah.
I used to have a client from Kuwait, which I thought was
Oh
really
my God,
cool.
cool.
Yeah, and I got to like learn all about her culture, and it was really cool.
That's so great.
Yeah.
And then do you do like I guess what does it look like working with you? Do you do like single sessions? Is it like a long-term commitment?
Yeah, so sometimes in the past I was offering single sessions, but what I was finding was that the experience was just so much richer and so much more beneficial for the person when it was a longer
Yeah.
experience. So originally I was offering a package, and now I offer only 6 months minimum.
Okay.
And a lot of times clients will work with me up to a year.
Yeah.
Just because once you create that relationship and you're going deeper and you're kind of like discovering so much about
I'm
yourself, like
sure you want to build off
it's
of it.
exactly. You want to keep going. Like you get curious about yourself, you start having breakthroughs, you start seeing the changes in your
Okay.
nervous system and what's happening in your life, and you kind of don't want to stop. It's like kind of
Yeah.
fun,
Oh my
Like
God.
I
I
know it's
love breath work.
like what could be fun about healing trauma, but I mean it is. I promise it's kind of fun.
Yeah. So I guess for like our listeners, what does that look like? Because I know healing trauma sounds so scary.
It does.
So how can we make it fun?
Yeah, so I think what makes it fun is just seeing yourself on the other side of something that was once so challenging.
Mm-hmm.
I can share an example. I had someone reach out to me that shared with me this week that the relationship with her mom is totally different and in the best way.
Really?
Like she doesn't get triggered by her mom anymore. Like she's able to, go out with her friends and not feel shame about it or guilt
Okay.
about it because the relationship that she had with her mom at that time, that's what the relationship was. And I mean, to me, that's transformation. Like, if you
That's
can go
huge.
out and, like, as a mom of 4 kids and have a better relationship with your mom at the same time, I mean, that's, like, life changing. Like,
Yeah.
to be able to have a healthy relationship with your parents is so healing. And yeah, like, I don't remember what the question was now, to be completely honest. But
It was, how can we make it less scary?
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
To look at that
yeah,
exciting outcome.
how it's fun. So, in the moment, like the work that people do, it can be emotional. It can be, bringing up things that maybe you've never even thought about in the past.
Right. That was my next question.
Yeah. So it can be confronting. I don't know if it's necessarily for just anybody. I think it's for someone that's really committed to their growth and is kind of looking for that next evolution of themselves. Yeah, and then what I guess the fun parts about it is like, yeah, just being on the other side of like what was once a challenge and being like, oh, this is pretty funny that I have this pattern, but there's another
Right.
way. And knowing that there's another way and knowing that there's possibility and that there's more for us out there. Like we are not our limitations, we are not our past, we are not who people perceive us to be. Like we get
Mm-hmm.
to create who we are and we get to create our lives and have, whatever we want, really.
I love that message. And so a lot of people don't realize the trauma they have, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure you get that all the time. People saying like, oh, wow, I didn't realize this was something that was holding me back, right? So for somebody who, I don't know, who feels stuck but doesn't think they have any trauma to come to break through, how would you help them?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I would just get really curious.
Okay.
I think I actually do have people that come to me with this exact
Yeah.
kind of challenge. And that's what's so interesting about working with the body is like we're not trying to outthink our feelings or outthink our stuckness or outthink whatever the challenge might be. Like we're trying to feel it. Like we're going to
Right.
feel, okay, you're stuck. Like where do you feel that in your body? Okay, you feel numb. Like what kind of numb? Is it like an empty like hole numb or is it like a, like a numb that like you don't know enough about? Like are you curious about the numb? Are
Okay.
you curious about the stuck? Like
Oh, I love these
does
questions.
the stuck feel like you're stuck because you're like pushing so much up against a wall or does it feel like you're frozen stuck? Like see
Okay.
there's like difference,
Right. And I'm sure I didn't even realize there's different kinds of stuff.
yeah,
And
so
I,
it's like really working with the emotion, really working with the feeling, and then I mean there's so much that could come through there. Like
yeah,
I would just be so curious because and it would be different for everyone. Like everyone's so
of
different. So
course.
yeah.
Those are such great questions to ask. So, how could you help somebody start getting into somatic breath work? Like, would you suggest them starting with just general breath work or jumping right into something somatic?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have like an online resource that's free and it has like
Okay.
4 audio meditation breath works that I think they're like 10 minutes or less, all of them.
Beautiful.
And those are like little like integrative practices. Yeah, I think I would just be like let yourself have some freedom around what might feel good for you and your
Okay.
body. And that might look like, going to a workshop or going to an in-person class or doing like a virtual class
Yeah.
or doing a one-on-one session. Like, I think, yes, like I love working with people long term for sure. I think there is so much value in just kind of like letting yourself follow
Hmm.
what feels good for you and what you're curious about. And it will usually lead you down the path of like, oh, like this is the thing.
Right. So let's actually rewind to what breath work is. I don't think we covered that specifically. Like for somebody who has heard of breath work, because I even feel this way in the past. Like I knew what breath work was, but like it just seemed kind of foreign to me. Like, all right, do I just sit there and breathe? Like, what exactly is it?
Yeah, it's such a good question. There's so many different forms of breath work. So, the one that I think we all know most commonly is like what I would call mindful breathing. So, that's
Okay.
like when you're doing a meditation and they're telling you to focus on like the inhale through your nose and the exhale through your mouth and like
Okay.
what that air feels like. To me, that's like mindful breathing. Somatic breath work is kind of like it's a facilitated experience. So, for example, there's a lot of different breath patterns that we could do or in a session, but the one that I find is like the deepest experience is called the triactive breath or the pranayama breath. And so that's inhaling into your belly, inhaling into your chest, and exhaling, and it's all through the mouth.
Really?
So it's like
Okay.
and when you do that for an extended period of time, so sometimes 20, 30
Wow.
minutes,
What a
you
commitment.
are, yeah, you are, you're going into a different state. So your body temperature might change. You might experience an emotional release. You might want to shake and move your body. Your hands might clamp up. Your feet might clamp up.
Okay.
You might also, see some different like colors or have some different like messages come through. And then my favorite part is after that active breath is done, you kind of, or at least this is how I facilitate breath
Yeah.
work, so I can't speak for everyone, but you have this moment where it can be anywhere from, 5 to 10, 15 minutes, where you're just kind of like soaking in the rewards of all
Yeah.
that hard
Like
work that you
buzzing,
just
right?
did. Yeah, you're like vibrating.
Yeah.
And that's when I think you, that's when I personally receive so much insight and really feel like connected to something deeper and
Hmm.
kind of like outside of myself and not so close to my challenges. And for my clients, that's where they're, sharing that they, saw visions or like got a message
Yeah.
or they were able to just see a different perspective from what they were bumping up
I
against.
love
So,
that. So I know something that I struggled with breath work. And I think sometimes now, like I'm always kind of in a rush. And that's why I do breath work to help slow me down. I don't know where I'm rushing to, but I'm going somewhere. And I think a lot of people are like that. We're always on the go.
Absolutely.
And I think for me in the past, if I went into a breath work and didn't almost like set that expectation of, all right, I'm going to be here for 30 minutes. I rush it. Like I try to rush through the breath. I try to rush through maybe the time I would take at the end to sit and journal or reflect after. So what tips would you give to somebody who needs to slow down? How can we slow down and get full advantage of maybe not a full breath work session, but just being more present?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like being able to, take an hour out of your day is a lot to ask.
Hmm.
So if it looks like starting with 5 minutes of getting present, starting with 10 minutes, 15, like start with what is tangible for you. That way you
Okay.
can set yourself up for success and you're not trying to like do too much and then be
Yeah.
upset when it doesn't happen. So I would say, yeah, start with like a tangible amount of time that feels good. And then in terms of like, I use the word dropping in, but what I mean is like getting present and like
Okay.
giving yourself that time and
I like
space to
that.
just
Dropping
kind
in.
of like take a deep exhale. Like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I have 10 minutes here to just like do
Yeah.
my breath work and be still. I think it's really, really important for those 10 minutes are so
Yeah.
important. And like maybe getting clear on like why you really need to slow down. Like, why are you taking these 10 minutes?
Right.
Because my belief is like those 10 minutes is what is regulating your nervous system. So when something challenging does happen, when you get triggered by what so-and-so says, by what this is going on, this is happening, it's those 10 minutes that are going to completely change how you respond.
Right.
And your response is what's creating that stress. It's what's creating the hypervigilant state. It's putting you into fight or flight or potentially freeze or fawn. So those 10 minutes, you're literally expanding your window of tolerance. And so they're really important.
Yeah.
Those 10 minutes are really important.
That's like a recharge, right?
Yeah. So it's like allow yourself the gift of just being present. Like,
I love that.
We're all rushing somewhere, but there's nowhere to be. Like,
yeah.
Allow yourself that gift, because those 10 minutes, you will receive so much more from those 10 minutes than if you just like push through it.
Yeah.
And maybe 30 minutes for someone is too much. Like, work yourself up to like where it's feeling manageable and attainable and like something that you can do.
I think once they start reaping or feeling the benefits, feeling that calmness, you'll want to do more. Or maybe even like 10 minutes is the sweet spot for somebody and it manages them completely, or helps them manage rather.
Yeah.
That's great.
Something that I always like to remind people of, and this also helped me as well. There was one point where I was like, doing the whole thing. I was like waking up at whatever it was, 5 or 6 in the morning, going to the gym for an hour, coming back, showering, going to work until 5, taking a break, working later after that in the evenings. Like, so I was working or getting up at 5 and working till 10. And that was just kind of like my life at one point when I was,
a lot.
Yeah, it was wild time, but I was balancing a lot. But my anxiety was my biggest challenge. And I kind of had this moment where I was like, similar to working out, similar to going to the gym or eating well or doing wellness, you can't do it, once a month and think like, oh, I'm going to do it once, I'm going to have like a 6-pack. Like, that's not how it works.
Got to be consistent.
Yeah. And I was like, if anxiety is what I'm struggling with every day, why am I not doing something for it every day? Like, even if it's 5 minutes, even if it's 10 minutes, even if it's reading a passage of like my favorite Gabby Bernstein book.
I love Gabby Bernstein.
Love Gabby. Yeah.
I knew you knew her. I was waiting to ask, but I knew you knew her. I love her. I listen to her podcast almost every day.
Yes, me too. And maybe that's it. Maybe it's listening to Gabby's podcast. It's like, why would if anxiety was something I was struggling with every day, why wouldn't I do something for it every day? There's no like shortcut to being grounded. You have to put in like the 10 minutes to get grounded.
Exactly. And that's, like you said, just like a health and fitness goal. If you want to see results, you have to do the underlying work. And I actually believe that like this underlying work, like releasing that trauma or getting down, figuring out what that trauma is, will help your overall health and fitness goals so much. Like, you truly, at the end of the day, if you are trying to, similar to like if you're trying to out-train a bad diet, if you're trying to cover up your traumas, if you're trying to cover up your anxiety, you're going to crash and burn at some point. You have to figure out what's causing it, and you have to figure out a way to sustain that too, so that like you're just not constantly like fighting yourself or chasing yourself in this circle.
Yeah.
It's so important.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah. So breathwork itself, I mean, I feel like I want to explain it a little bit deeper, like how you could feel from it. Like, what does it do to your body?
Yeah. So breath work, when you're manipulating like your breath and you're changing it consciously in a different way, it's shifting your nervous system, really. So it's bringing you from whatever state you're currently in into your window of tolerance.
Okay.
And it's just going to elicit like different sensations in your body. So you might feel like pins and needles. You might feel maybe, like I mentioned, kind of like how your hands might clamp up, your feet might clamp up, like different reactions in your body. And it's because of the amount of like oxygen that's going to your body.
So it's just like oxygen flowing through your body differently. Got it. And what does that do for you, like energy wise?
Yeah. So energy wise, it will definitely help you to process anything that might be lingering. So I like to call it kind of like an energy cleanse. Like, you are literally cleansing your own space, your own whole body, nervous system with your breath. And I view your breath as your life force energy. It's the first thing when you come into the world. It's the last thing when you leave the world. It's your breath. Like, if you're breathing, you're alive. And so you're using your breath to literally cleanse your own energy. And that looks like, bringing in what is new, like clearing out your space, and also releasing what needs to be released.
Wow. Crazy. I work with a lot of people who I need to help them manage their stress. I help them manage it through training, through proper nutrition, but there's a lot of outside stressors, work, kids, family drama that are difficult to manage. It's difficult for, like, I can just say to them, like, oh, like, let's try and look at it differently, but that only means so much. So what tips can you give to somebody who is feeling a lot of stress? How can they manage it better?
Yeah. And I love the approach that you use and how holistic it is, and how it's like really meeting people where they are, and how you're even considering their stress on their fitness journey is just like amazing to me.
It's so important.
Stress management is so important. And I know we talked a little bit about taking those 10 minutes. I do think that that's important. I think it's also, being aware that there are some things that are just out of our control. And so really being observant and mindful with where you are when things aren't in your control. So we can't control like anything really outside of ourselves, outside of our own thoughts, behaviors, actions, beliefs. And if we are getting really stressed out about the things that aren't in our control, then maybe it's like looking at that. Like, what can we do to like not have such a strong reaction when it's not really in our control? Like, we just don't have control over certain things.
Yeah. I had a therapist once tell me that control is an illusion. And I think that's really heavy if you're somebody who likes to be in control. But once you process that and digest it and realize, like, okay, I really don't have that much control. Like, again, that first step is really scary. But then you can almost like change your approach to some things and take a weight off your shoulder. Like, I can't control this. Why bother trying?
Right.
And that, like, same thing with stress. I think a big part of it is perspective. Like, you can choose to be really worked up about the person that just cut you off on the road.
Gosh, yes.
Right? And like, it's so easy to lose that. But like, at the end of the day, are you really going to let that person have control over you and add stress to your life? Like, we know stress is like a silent killer, right? So like, is that really worth hurting yourself? Because it's hurting yourself. And I know it's easier said than done, but just increasing that awareness is so important.
Yeah, I think mindfulness really, really is helpful for stress management, road rage for sure. And it's really like when we are feeling, like, I think driving actually is a great example. Like, when you're in a regulated state, if someone cuts you off, all right, like, come on in, like, you'd be like, kind of no problem. But if you're in a dysregulated state and someone cuts you off, you might be flipping them off.
Oh my God,
you might be cursing them. You might be honking your horn.
Right.
Like, I think driving is such like a tangible, relatable example of like how is our nervous system doing? Like, what state are we in? How is our day going?
Because you can literally be like triggered in an instant while driving.
Yeah.
I think that's a great example. That's what everybody should do right now. If you're listening to this while driving, I mean, you're probably a little bit calmer because you're listening to us talk, but like, just pay attention. Like, I don't know, to how you even speak to somebody. I'll even catch myself doing this. Like, if somebody actually this morning, this guy was like speeding and weaning through traffic. And I said to myself, I'm like, you're such an asshole. Then I was like, you know what? Maybe he has somewhere to be. Maybe he's in a rush. Maybe he needs to use the bathroom really bad. I don't know. But like, it wasn't, he was driving like an asshole. But like, it's not fair for me to label that guy as that. So I was even trying to like how I hold myself to the standard, trying to like digest how I'm speaking a little bit and just try to be a little bit nicer.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So what can you give for tips for somebody for like overall anxiety, like besides breath work, of course, which we know can be very helpful? How can we help people decrease their anxiety, manage it a bit better?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think there's like a lot of maybe like misconception out there that like if you have anxiety, there's something like wrong with
Right.
you, or like it needs to be fixed, like it needs to change. And I think that, struggling with anxiety, definitely, of course, like we don't want to feel that way usually. It's not like the best
It's not a
feeling.
good feeling. Yeah.
So aside from that, just really like reassuring people that like anxiety is something that so many people experience, and it's something that you can move through. It's something that
Right.
can be changed if you want it to. And it's just one part of ourselves that's activated. I use the analogy, another driving analogy,
Yeah.
of, we all have these different parts of ourselves. Like we have our inner teen, we have our higher self, we have our inner witness, maybe our inner mom or inner dad. Like we have all these parts of ourselves that are in the mix of our lives. They're, doing whatever they're doing.
Mhm.
I always like to ask, like, who's driving the car? Like, if you're, maybe they're all in like an Escalade. I don't know what kind of car you like. An Escalade, maybe they're in a
Yeah.
minivan, like whatever. All your parts are like
Maybe they're
in
in
the
a
same
smart
car.
car.
Yeah.
And there's no room for anybody else.
It's like who's driving the
Right.
car? Like, is your inner child driving the car and
Okay.
she's feeling like really scared, or like she needs love, like, and
She can't see over the steering wheel.
yeah, she's like, where am I going? I'm just
Right.
really scared, I can't see. Or is it like your higher self that's driving the car that day? So it's just knowing that like the anxious part of you it's one part of you. It
Okay.
doesn't define who you are. It's just like it's a part of you.
Right.
One
Oh,
part that
that's such
has a
great
need.
advice.
And what does that part need? Does that part need safety? Does it need love? Does it need to be a big hug and just to be
Mhm.
like held? Like, instead of letting our anxiety define us and swallow us whole, and I'm an anxious person, I'll be anxious forever. It's like
Mhm.
it's just one part of us.
That's beautiful. I think that's could be so helpful to so many people. And me personally, I could have heard that like years and years ago when I was in college. I think my junior or sophomore year, maybe. So I was in college in Florida. I was living on my own. I had such actually I had a really bad breathing problem at one point. So bad to the
Wow.
point that I was going to the cardiologist. I was going to all these different doctors. And thank God there was nothing wrong with my heart, nothing wrong with my lungs. And then finally my mom was like, I think we should try and speak to a therapist. I was like, why would I speak to a therapist? There's something wrong with me. Turns out I just had really bad anxiety. And
Wow.
I went on medication to help and it got better, but it was debilitating. Like I couldn't go up a flight of stairs without like being completely out of breath. And like I was going to the gym working out, like I should be able to do that, right? I was in shape,
Wow.
but I let it have such control over me. And even to this day, like when I feel anxious, you know what I do? I do breath work
Yeah.
because it helps me so much. And I had a therapist teach me, the same one who said that control is an illusion, square breathing. And that was like
Mm-hmm.
my introduction to breath work. And it was like, even just like that moment, for those of you who don't know, square breathing is literally just like breathing a 4 count, inhale 1, 2, 3, 4, hold 1, 2, 3, 4, exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, and then hold 1, 2, 3, 4, right?
Right.
And like you picture like a square, you're building a square around. And even just like taking that moment to like disconnect and focus on building that square and my breath was so helpful to me. It like
Yeah.
completely changed my life.
Yeah, that's so inspiring. I love that story. I'm so
Thanks.
glad that you shared that. Yeah, I would say that that's like using mindfulness and breath work. So, like
Hmm.
mindful breathing. And that is a tool that you have in your back pocket anytime.
Yeah.
You have that while you're driving. You have that on your break at work. You have
Right.
that in the stairwell in college. Like,
Yeah.
that is why your breath is so powerful, because it's yours. It's your tool.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
You don't need to do anything different. You can do it on a plane. You don't need
Yeah.
to go anywhere. Like, you always have your breath.
Yeah.
So
It's so
it's like
important.
the best tool you can have. It's literally yourself soothing your own nervous system and
Yeah.
healing from the inside out yourself, which is
It's
so
huge.
empowering.
And I think so many people could be so scared to like take that time for themselves. Like, oh no, I have other things to do. It's counterproductive. Like, same way, like how I advise people to go to bed earlier. Well, I have so much to do. Like, I'm wasting time sleeping when I could be doing this. Like, no, you're able to do all of that because you're taking the time to breathe, the time to sleep, rest, and so on to fill up your cup. And I get like we want to help fill up other people's cups, but like you have to make sure yours is full before even attempting to help somebody else.
Yeah, it's
So
so true.
important. Great.
Yes, and I love this importance on sleep.
Yeah, we're all
I
going to get
love
really
that.
good sleep.
I love that. I could literally, oh my gosh, I don't even know how many hours I sleep, but
Oh my
I
God,
love
I
it.
need all the sleep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm big
it's
on
great.
sleep.
All right, awesome. Well, this has been so fun. I want to
Yeah.
ask last message before we go. Like, what is your message that you want to leave behind to everybody?
Ooh, good question.
I know it's a hard question. It's a pressure
Yeah, I
question.
know. Like, oh my goodness. Um, I guess a message that came through for me a few weeks ago, I went on a business retreat with a bunch of like female
Oh, right. I saw.
entrepreneurs. Yeah, it was
How
cool.
cool.
And on that retreat, we did like a little meditation. And what came through for me was this message around just like keep going. Like, I
Yeah.
think like we put so much pressure on ourselves for things to be a certain way or look a certain way or for our goals to happen tomorrow. But it's like we have our whole lives. We
Yes.
don't need to do everything this month, this year, even next year. Like we have our whole lives, one foot in front of the other, keep going, stay connected to your why, and just, yeah, keep going.
That's
You got this.
beautiful. Yeah, you guys got this. I love that. I call it like just take messy action. Like sometimes we hold ourselves back. Like it needs to be perfect for me to take action on this. And sometimes it doesn't need to be perfect. You just need to do or don't. Maybe you don't, but it's a beautiful
Yeah.
message.
Oh, thank you.
And
Thank you so
then,
much for having
of
me.
course, and
Yeah.
last note, if anybody wants to work with you, find you, how can we contact you?
You could just connect with me right on Instagram or TikTok. I'm at Rae, Rae, the somatic coach, and my website, rachelekraft.com.
Cool. I will link everything.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much. Thank you.
Oh, how fun.